She had always prided herself on her comfortable life, the house they had bought with painstaking savings, the laughter echoing through its rooms, the sense of security that came from knowing her husband was devoted to her and only her. Every morning she would wake to the soft light slipping through the drapes, his arms around her, a gentle reminder that she was loved. It was perfectly ordinary, and yet in its ordinariness, it was everything she could have wanted. But then, without warning, everything changed. It began on a rainy Tuesday when she returned early from the office. A storm had delayed her husband's flight back from a business trip, and rather than wait at the airport, she decided to surprise him by picking him up herself. The house was silent, empty. Strange, she thought, but perhaps he lurked upstairs, napping. She called his name softly as she stepped through the front door. The foyer light flickered. She set her purse down and slipped off her coat, the quiet settling around her like dust. She found him in the kitchen leaning against the counter, staring at a young woman who was wiping down the counters. The sight froze her in the doorway. The woman was impossible to miss. The same chestnut hair, same high cheekbones, same hazel eyes set above the same delicate nose. Her husband's hand came to rest on the woman's arm, and she turned and smiled, a smile so familiar, so intimately hers, that her heart thundered in her chest. She watched in silence as the impostor, her mirror image, placed a bowl of fruit on the counter. Her husband caught sight of her at last, and his face went white. He stuttered, tried to speak, but the duplicate looked from the husband to her with an inscrutable expression. What happened next changed everything. The copy took a step toward her and placed a gentle hand on her cheek. The touch was cool against her warm skin, but in that moment she felt a strange solidarity with the stranger. It was almost as if time slowed and the world narrowed to the space between their bodies. Suddenly, her husband's voice broke the hush. "Sarah, this is Maria, our new maid. Maria just started today. I know it's weird, but she reminded me so much of you, I thought you'd like it. I was going to surprise you." Maria smiled again, that perfect reflection of her own lips curving upward. And then, before the stunned wife could respond, Maria leaned in and brushed her lips against hers. Shock obliterated everything she thought she knew. She stumbled backward, her hand pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide and unbelieving. Her husband tried to explain, but she didn't hear him. Her pulse roared in her ears and her vision blurred. She fled upstairs, her heart shattering with betrayal and confusion. Maria's laughter followed her like a ghost, soft and mocking. Alone in their bedroom, she sank onto the bed and buried her face in the pillows. Her mind raced. Had her husband truly hired a look-alike maid just to toy with her? Was he hiding something deeper? Or was this the beginning of something far more sinister? She slept little that night. The rain battered the windows, echoing her pounding heart. In the early hours, she crept downstairs, determined to confront Maria alone. But the maid was gone, as if she had never existed. The kitchen was spotless once more. Her purse sat on the counter, her keys still in the bowl by the door. No sign of Maria anywhere. When her husband finally returned from the airport, bleary and apologetic, she confronted him. He swore Maria was real, that she had come recommended by an agency. She demanded the agency name and number. He stuttered, searched through his phone but found nothing. No calls, no messages, no record of the agency or the woman herself. Day by day she questioned her own sanity. If Maria was a phantom, why did her clothes find their way into the laundry? Why did tiny fingerprints appear on her perfume bottles? Why did the ordering of her books on the living room shelf shift ever so slightly from one day to the next? She felt watched and haunted. Then the letters began arriving. Unmarked envelopes slipped under her bedroom door in the early morning. Inside, a single Polaroid photo of her, sleeping, dressed in the nightgown her husband had given her 5 years ago. Her breath caught the first time she saw it, a photograph taken without her knowledge. How had someone broken into their bedroom? The second photo showed her standing at the kitchen sink, washing dishes. The third, her leaning back in the living room chair, half-finished novel in her hand. She tore through the house that afternoon, demanding answers. Her husband insisted he knew nothing. He offered to call the police, but she refused. She didn't trust his story any longer. Instead, she began her own investigation. She installed cameras in every room, changed every lock, and hired a private investigator, all without her husband's knowledge. She combed through the Polaroids for clues: a reflection in the window, a sliver of a tattoo peeking from under her nightdress, a pattern on a pair of shoes. Each detail was a breadcrumb leading her deeper into a labyrinth of lies. The PI's first report was disheartening. No record existed of any maid named Maria. No background checks could find her family, her friends, her life before the day she walked into their kitchen. It was as if she had appeared out of thin air. No credit history, no social media presence, no digital footprint at all. But then the PI discovered something chilling. Maria's Polaroids included a date stamp, a code etched into the border indicating a photo studio that had long since closed. The studio's archives lay in a basement storage unit 4 hours away. It was a long shot, but the PI managed to secure access. Inside, they found rows of battered cardboard boxes filled with Polaroids. And there, at the back of one box, was a folder marked Sarah Thompson. Inside the folder were dozens of photos, spanning her entire life: her 5th birthday party, her high school graduation, her wedding day. Every milestone captured, every private moment documented, and among them, photos of Maria sitting in the exact same places, wearing the same clothes. At the same time, terror gripped her heart. Somehow Maria had been watching her since she was a child. She confronted her husband that night with the evidence. He turned pale and confessed. Maria wasn't a maid. She was Sarah's identical twin, given up for adoption at birth. Their mother had been too poor to raise 2 children and made a desperate choice. She had a breakdown years later. Their father died soon after. Maria, who had suffered through foster homes, had become obsessed with the sister she never knew existed. Every step Maria took had been orchestrated to bring her closer. The Polaroids, the phantom maid interview, the uncanny resemblance. Maria had wanted to step into Sarah's life to replace her. The shock, the betrayal, the horror threatened to suffocate her. But she realized something then. She was stronger than the twisted script Maria had written. She stood her ground. She refused to be erased. She called the police, and the PI delivered Maria's location: a derelict cottage on the outskirts of town. They found her there, surrounded by mementos stolen from Sarah's life. She rocked back and forth, chanting Sarah's name, her eyes wild. The sisters came face to face for the first time in 27 years. Maria's rage and grief burst forth in a torrent of tears. Sarah felt her anger melt into compassion. Somewhere between the stolen photos and the shattered reunion, she saw her own reflection in Maria's broken eyes, and knew that hate would only breed more tragedy. Sarah visited Maria in the psychiatric facility where she was committed. She brought old family photos, shared memories of their mother who had loved them both. Slowly, Maria's walls began to crumble. It took months, but when Sarah stood before Maria one last time before her release, she didn't see a rival or an imposter. She saw her sister. And though the scars of betrayal would never fade, she chose to forgive. Because family, even the family that chooses to hide from you, is bound by blood. Back at home, Sarah locked away the Polaroids and dismantled the cameras. She held onto her husband's hand and felt his remorse in the warmth of his fingertips. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, her own face unmarred, and whispered thank you for the gift of knowing herself twice over. In the quiet that followed, they began to rebuild. Not the old, ordinary life, but a new one. More honest, more resilient, and forever changed by the shock that nearly destroyed them, but ultimately brought them closer than they could have imagined.